Rainwater. Robin Vernal sat calmly at the Lindensfarne Tea and Coffee Emporium, sipping peppermint tea and gazing inquirely at Sergeant Lombard. Pond sat a few tables away. Other than the three of them, the cafe was deserted. It was tea time. Since the sun started to touch the horizon, a thick sea fog had begun to engulf the island. It was difficult to see more than a few meters outside through the wide cafe windows, and Lombard thought it lent the conversation he was about to have with an ethereal backdrop that was oddly appropriate. "Can I get you anything else?" Lombard asked. Robin slowly shook her head, smiling gently at the world-weary policeman. "We have a lot to discuss, I think," Lombard said. "Perhaps," said Robin. "Are you not hungry?" Lombard asked again, in an effort to put off asking questions he knew must eventually come. "A scone, a muffin, some toast, something can be arranged if it will help." Robin smiled again. "Thank you, Sergeant. Perhaps I will have a muffin, if it's okay. Please, will you join me?" It was the last week of term, and Danny delightfully skipped up to the English department to collect next term's reading list. He felt safe in the knowledge that there wouldn't be a medieval knight nor a plague-ridden damsel among the books. The list was long, and the novels were not short either. The entire 5-week Easter break was to be spent consuming as much as Dickens, Bront, and Hardy as he could. After a full term of strange words and distant metaphors, he was looking forward to reading in English again. Normal English. English with a plot. Characters were more going on in their lives than just blind faith. The intermittent sound of another trudging up the stairs grew behind Danny. As he turned, Hattie's face materialized. Her little body approached Danny. She wore navy shorts and a white vest that exposed her honey arms. As he looked upon her, impure thoughts crossed Danny's mind. "Snaffled the list again?" Hattie said. "There's a lot to read, but at least it should be all comprehensible." Hattie pulled a sheaf of stapled papers from the nearby cardboard bin marked Victorians, Summer Term. "This is what I dreamed of when I chose English at York," Hattie said. "Sitting under the shade of a tree in Helsington Hall, topiary, occasionally looking out at the lake while consuming vast amounts of Wilkie Collins and Charlotte Bront." "Sounds like you should be a writer yourself," Danny said, almost unconsciously. Hattie looked momentarily confused. "What do you mean?" she said. "I meant the image you just presented to me. It's idyllic. Have you ever thought about writing a novel yourself?" Danny asked, tentatively wondering if this random outburst strayed into territory Hattie might find strange. "It's funny that you should say that, Danny. I'm setting up a creative writing group next term. I think it's odd that there isn't one in York already." "Really?" Danny said enthusiastically. He shone like an eager gaze upon her. "Have you written lots of stuff then?" "Just bits and pieces, nothing substantial or good. That's what the group's for, to help me and the others get better. Want to join?" Memories of the Oracle and Communique came rushing back to Danny's mind. It would be nice to be a part of a writing group without Amanita's domineering presence bullying him into writing things they did not want to write. This sounded different. It would be up to him to decide what to write and what to share. He would get to see more of Hattie. "Yes, please," Danny said, still gazing at the curved domes of Hattie's butter-skinned shoulders. Virgil sat on his camp stool, resting his head in his hands. He would not believe Heather had betrayed him. The tender touch of her fingertips across his chest, the fragrant graze of her hair against his face. He'd smelled her hair. She'd enveloped him with smooth, unblemished thighs. If true, it was a praying mantis type of treachery. Virgil felt the truth to be an elusive beast, just like predators concealed by leaves within the undergrowth. The question burned a searing course across anguished thoughts. Was it true? The oppressive humidity was making his clothes stink. The persistent heat fudged thoughts he normally prided as being lucid as glass. He brushed a lock of sandy hair from his forehead and stood. The posture helped. Immediately he felt more in control. Joni and Christina, he would need to speak to them. Jed and Heather were implicated. Joni and Christina were neutral. Gaining their perceptions of the other two's trustworthiness would be vital. Retrospectives, Virgil thought, and before they left for a plane. The last day of spring term at Durham was a hive of activity. Lazy students and fussy parents attempted to pack belongings and move them to the BMWs and Mercedes parked in college car parks. Samuel offered to drive Amanita back to his rusty Ford Fiesta, but Amanita declined. She cited the car would not be able to accommodate both their sets of luggage. That was true, but it wasn't the real reason. Amanita was looking forward to seeing her mother. The fact Wendy had got time off work and was coming up too made it a family occasion she spent the last week anticipating. The term had not been easy. Her essays gradually received higher marks, but she was still coming to terms with the fact her work at the moment was hovering around a 2-to-2, 2-to-1 boundary. She'd never received anything less than top marks in her academic work. The new experience of needing to improve was not painless. She was still learning about Samuel and his foibles. He was attentive to her when just the two of them, but as his friends gradually infiltrated more of the picture, something else seemed to preoccupy his thoughts. Amanita had recovered from the shock of her mugging, but the consequences of the trip to York to see Danny filled her mind with puzzles and questions quite apart from Samuel and her academic work. If only the three of them were still together, if only they could still write and investigate these things in the communique, then she would feel a little more in control of the events. As it was, she felt a little bit as if on a roller coaster, sliding around a rain-sodden tracks with no one at the wheel. Scarlotta joined Amanita, who was perched on the wall outside their hall of residence. "All right, hun?" Scarlotta sipped something from a flask. "Yeah, another term gone. Time moves so quickly up here," Amanita said, breathing in the frozen air. "Just a Wurlitzer of parties, lectures, soirees, and seminars," Scarlotta said cheerfully. "Any plans for Easter break?" Reading, Amanita said. "I want to read the new biography of Blair." "Why?" Scarlotta asked. "It's not that I'm a huge fan," Amanita lied, who'd never failed to be impressed by his wide grin and common-sense answers. "I want to understand what it's like to be a leader." "Are you going to run for student union president, then?" Scarlotta asked, sarcasm invading her tone. Amanita didn't answer. She smiled shortly at Scarlotta and went back inside for her mum. It began to rain. "Water, redda, adder, water, rain, erin, neera, nair, fall, foul, off, down, nord, ound, wound." The rain thundered as gray skies morphed to black. They were lit by the occasional lightning flash. Mum was late, thought Amanita, her face pressed up against the glass while her belongings lay about the room in cardboard boxes. Thin trickles of damp drizzle from the cold metal frame thickened into gushing rivulets of water, winding their way from the window into the gutter. She gazed at the little flower on her windowsill. It looked bare now she'd removed her books. She reached for the small plastic vial of water adjacent to the pot and poured half into the soil. The brown mulch promptly absorbed the moisture and disappeared into the plant's roots, which sucked it up hungrily. The black Volvo pulled into the college car park. With the sip of a heartbeat that meant home, Amanita instantly recognized it as her mother's. She jumped up, excited as she watched her mum exit the car, but then paused. Another figure was climbing out of the passenger seat. It was too small to be Wendy. She pressed her face against the glass again and saw, with a sinking drop of horror, it was a fully uniformed Sergeant Lombard. Virgil walked across the clearing.